Brothers and sisters, listen to the silence that cuts through the sky, even when all you hear are sirens, explosions, and the cries of people torn apart by pain. Today, in this sacred space for our reflection, my call isn't political or even religious in the rigid sense of dogma, but deeply human and pastoral. I want to talk to you not as a distant leader, but as someone who feels the pain of every broken family, who prays with mothers who've lost their children, who cries with fathers, and who intercedes for the good of all people, whether from Israel, Iran, or any corner where violence is present. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. Allow me now to invite you into a moment of deep listening and open-heartedness. Don't look away. Don't close your ears. Because the drama of war, this tragedy unfolding before our eyes, speaks about all of us. Have you ever wondered how many lives fit into the minutes of silence between a bomb blast and the distant ringing of a bell? Have you thought about what remains sacred when everything seems to fall apart? So at the start of this, I ask you to join me. Like this video, share it with anyone who needs to hear a message of peace, and leave your comment right now about how you see the war, so this conversation doesn't end with me, but reverberates like a community prayer. Subscribe to this channel, because together we can sow seeds of compassion and change, one word at a time. Today, my invitation is for you to inhabit this moment with me, where, between the sirens of destruction and the solemn sound of psalms, hope pulsates, hope that even in humanity's darkest valley, there's a voice that won't be silenced, the voice of God, whispering mercy into the abyss of pain. On one side, we see the metallic shriek of alarms at any time of day or night. On the other, we see people gathered in church pews, mosques, or small synagogues, raising their hands, chanting hymns, and reading ancient promises of peace. The contrast is terrible and at the same time revealing. Where many see chaos, others insist on seeing the invisible, the discreet but real presence of the sacred. Amidst the smoke, flames, and fear, bells still toll, small, solitary bells. Hoarse voices of mothers and fathers who, even without knowing if they'll see tomorrow, recite psalms, say our fathers, or simply fall silent, that silence where God speaks. It's in this space between calamity and faith that our humanity is tested. This is where our reflection today begins. Dear sons and daughters, there are nights that seem to never end, nights where the darkness isn't due to the absence of the sun, but to the loss of all certainty. Just like what happened on the night the sky was ripped open by bomb flashes, when entire families were forced to leave their homes, hugging each other in shelters, trying in vain to protect their children from a storm even the strongest man can't contain. Imagine for a moment the mother, with trembling hands, cradling her small child to her chest as the sound of explosions echoes through the thin walls of the makeshift shelter. Imagine the father, once a fortress, now vulnerable, crying in silence, trying not to show the terror in his eyes. Imagine the children, deprived of their right to dream, to play, to simply be children. They cling to whatever they can, a broken toy, a sheet of paper, a whispered prayer in the dark. I saw with my own eyes during so many pastoral visits of solidarity the change war imprints on the eyes of the little ones. They learn early to identify the sound of sirens, to count seconds until the next bombing, to distinguish who is from there and who is from here. What a world, my brothers! What kind of world is this, where childhood is measured in shelters, where simple gestures of joy are interrupted by fear and uncertainty? One of those nights, I heard the account of a young Israeli mother. Father, in the dark of the shelter, my son asked if God was scared too. I didn't know how to answer. I could only hug him. Yes, there are questions for which not even faith offers easy answers. Sometimes the only answer is silence. The silence where tears are prayer, where a constricted chest is an altar. And don't think this suffering is isolated. On the Iranian side, another mother, through tears, confessed, "My boy doesn't ask for toys anymore, he just asks for the noise to stop." Here, pain recognizes no passport, no language, no faith. It crosses borders like a cold wind, reaching all who have a beating heart. The immediate impact of violence is this: children who lose their right to sleep, adults who lose hope, shattered homes, streets silent except for crying or fear. And yet, there are those who insist on kneeling, clinging to prayer, seeking the comfort of an ancient psalm or a simple phrase of trust. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. My brothers, don't be fooled. War doesn't choose whom to wound. Its claws are wide, and only those who have never seen pain up close can believe it has a right side. That's why I remind everyone that prayer in these moments is a bridge, not a wall. It's a faint light that insists on shining in the darkest night. Pay attention, children. In the face of suffering, national words lose meaning. The Bible that comforts a Jewish child is the same one that brings hope to the heart of a small Christian or Muslim. A mother's cry for her lost child sounds the same in Hebrew, Farsi, or Arabic. A desperate father's embrace of his daughter's lifeless body knows no borders or national symbols. Pain, in its purest essence, is universal. I remember as if it were yesterday the account of a weary soldier. He said, "Father, I no longer know who I'm fighting against. I turn the face of the enemy and see the face of my own son." See then how the gospel becomes flesh in the mire. Love your enemies, do good to those who persecute you. Luke 6:27. There's no language more powerful than the desperate gesture of someone who has lost everything, but still finds the strength to reach out to another. The Iranian woman who prays in silence for the children of Israel. The elderly Israeli man who lights a candle for all victims, without asking where they came from or what name they bear. Pain, when embraced with compassion, transforms into an altar. Reflect with me. Does God cry when he sees his children destroying each other? I believe so. Because every life lost, whether from Israel or Iran, is an interrupted prayer, a psalm broken in half, a hope shattered, and there is no room within the heart of a true follower of Christ to celebrate the death of another. Jesus' cross was never a symbol of vengeance, but of redemption. I recall St. Paul's phrase, "When I am weak, then I am strong." 2 Corinthians 12:10. What does it mean to us? That human strength lies in admitting our own vulnerability in the face of pain. It lies in refusing the easy logic of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, which only prolongs the rusty cycle of suffering. Therefore, children, I challenge everyone to look at the pain of others not as an enemy, but as a mirror. When we stop assigning flags to pain, we begin to heal not only the world around us, but the wounds bleeding within ourselves. It's at this point, beloved, that I want to speak directly to the hearts of those who fight, wield weapons, and keep vigil at night, waiting for the next bombing. I ask you, who wear a uniform, who carry the weight of impossible decisions, how far does your humanity go? What remains of a person when war seems to demand that, to survive, they must dehumanize themselves? My call is bold. I ask you to look inside yourself and find, perhaps buried under trauma and fear, the spark of compassion that once burned there. Yes, it takes courage to cross the battlefield, but even greater courage to lay down your weapon, to prefer looking to shooting, to choose embracing over hatred. Christ in the Gospels never commanded anyone to take revenge. On the contrary, he taught, if someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. Matthew 5:39. And I know, my child, because I've heard it in confessions and in letters from soldiers, that no one returns from war unscathed. Everyone carries scars, not just on their bodies, but on their souls. Some tell me, "Father, my dreams are full of shadows. I'm ashamed of what I did, but I did it because I was told to. What now? How do I pray?" To you I say, there is still hope, always. As long as a man or woman can cry for what they've done, God can act. Evil only triumphs when it hardens the heart to the point where nothing but hatred remains. I know the story of a combatant who, during a break, decided to share his bread with a child from the opposing side. Later, he confessed, "In that moment I saw in their eyes that we were the same." And although the gunshots never completely ceased, in that brief second, humanity won. Sons and daughters, we are called to the courage of breaking the cycle, to stop perpetuating the logic of retaliation, of do to others what they did to you. It's not easy, in fact, it's humanly impossible without grace. But it's in this impossible ground that true miracles are born. Not spectacular miracles, but small, almost invisible ones that change the course of the world. Therefore I ask you who are in conflict, on the front lines or even in the silent drama of your home, to allow yourselves to lay down your weapons, if not those of iron, at least those of the heart. The first step is always the hardest, but it's also the most holy. And you listening to me, how have you perpetuated or broken the cycle of hatred? Have you considered that our words, our gestures, even our silence can be weapons or bridges? I ask, choose to be a bridge. My brothers, to continue this journey of faith and compassion together, don't forget to leave your opinion. Have you ever witnessed or experienced situations where forgiveness was stronger than anger? Share it here. Bring your story. This way we build a community where the voice of the gospel echoes not only in words, but in transformed lives. May the Lord of peace, he who knows the depths of our pain, bless each of you. May he strip your heart of all hatred and grant you the joy of being already today a living sign of peace where you live. May Mary, Mother of Hope, and all the saints intercede for us, and may we not be ashamed to be light where there is only darkness. My dears, let me now descend even further into the core of human suffering, where words barely reach, where only compassion can make new hope germinate. There, among the rubble of wounded cities, exists a silent, persistent force that defies all logic of destruction, the strength of mothers, of children, and of prayers. I want you to close your eyes with me for a moment and imagine, on a dusty street, with the remains of buildings and the strong smell of smoke, a mother kneels. She doesn't scream. Her lips barely move. She just prays for her child, prays for the children of others, prays even perhaps for the children of those she holds responsible for her pain. The whole world could explode around her, and no one would hear her prayer. But God listens. Oh, he hears every silent tear as if it were a symphony of hope. It's these mothers, sisters, and grandmothers who, by gathering their children in shelters and alleys with nothing to offer but a lap and a whispered, "It'll be okay," sustain the trembling ground on which we all walk. How many mothers share with me, Father, I just pray my child comes back. I don't ask for victory. I don't ask for revenge. I just ask for them to come back. A mother's heart knows no borders, recognizes no enemy. The other's child in pain is also her child. And the children? Oh, blessed children! The world wants to steal their innocence, but still they draw stars on torn papers, invent games among the ruins, softly sing songs learned by ear. I've seen, in underground shelters, small groups reciting psalms, holding makeshift candles, quietly laughing at jokes only children understand. They keep alive the spark of childhood, which is the living promise that tomorrow won't be like yesterday, if we care for them, if we learn from them. I'm told of a boy, Hassan, son of Iranian parents, who every night makes sure to pray not only for his family, but also for the children on the other side, whom he's never seen but knows suffer like him. And of a Jewish girl, Tamar, who writes letters without a recipient, wishing peace to those who may never respond. What a lesson in prophecy, my children! The prayer that breaks the circle and the cycle. The plea that doesn't ask for the destruction of the other, but salvation for all. Prayer is, in itself, an act of living prophecy. It's not an escape, not alienation. It's silent resistance. It's the construction of the invisible, where war only sees destruction. Every prayer that rises from the depths of fear is in fact a cry of faith. I believe that love is stronger. I believe that tomorrow can be better if my heart doesn't harden. Therefore, sons and daughters, never underestimate the power of a prayer, nor the value of a tear collected. God, who collects every sigh, makes the weeping of mothers and the smiles of children an inviolable altar. When all seems lost, when even churches crumble, it is there in the soul of every anonymous intercessor that the reconstruction of the world begins. My brothers, I invite you now to face with me one of the greatest spiritual challenges of our time, the cycle of hatred. Like a muddy river, it grows, gaining strength, sweeping everything in its path, starting with hearts. One spark is enough to set a forest of resentments ablaze, one word to rekindle old fears, one loss to justify a lifetime of revenge. How many times have we heard, "They attacked us, so we'll attack back"? How many families, in the pain of losing a child, swear never to forget, never to forgive? Who am I? Who are we to judge such suffering? And yet, it's precisely on the edge of this abyss that the voice of the gospel rings clearest, most revolutionary. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Matthew 5, verse 7. Allow me to tell you the story of Yusuf, an elderly Persian man who lost his grandson in a bombing. During the funeral, while everyone clamored for revenge, he remained silent. In the end, his eyes' wells of pain and wisdom searched the sky, and he simply said, "I don't want another mother to cry what I cried." This man, with his grief transformed into compassion, broke the cycle at that moment. He not only prevented more bloodshed, but also planted a seed. Generations will remember him not as weak, but as brave, a brave man of forgiveness. It's not just among the elderly that such examples arise. I heard of a young Israeli soldier, Sarah, who, upon capturing a wounded enemy, chose to care for him, feed him, wipe his sweat. In that moment, she said, I saw my brother in his face. I could have killed him, but I chose to love. What strength is this that confronts the most basic instinct of revenge and proposes something new, something the world considers madness? It is the power of the Holy Spirit, which blows where it wills, and above all, where it is most needed. Children, make no mistake, the cycle of hatred only ends when someone with almost supernatural courage decides to interrupt it. Someone who says, enough, the evil I suffered will not be passed on. That is true strength, not the strength of retaliation or retribution, but the difficult, humble strength of refusing to perpetuate evil. How many miracles begin this way, invisible to the world's eyes, but magnificent in God's eyes? I want you to think now, how many times in your life have you felt trapped in a cycle of hurt or resentment? How many times have you chosen retaliation, and how many times have you chosen compassion? Reflect. With each choice, are you a builder of bridges or a perpetuator of walls? Share your experiences in the comments. Perhaps your story will be the spark for a new beginning in someone's life. The triumph of compassion is not easy. It demands renunciation, courage, and, above all, a faith that doesn't give up on humanity, even when all seems lost. But it's only in this way, one heart at a time, that the cycle of hatred will be broken. We've come to the point, brothers, where I want to show you that the greatest strength isn't in grand public decisions, but in small, almost invisible, everyday gestures. Faith, when lived with humility, is like a candle lit in a dark place. It doesn't light up the whole world, but it prevents the darkness from being complete around you. So many stories reach me. A young Israeli man who, despite everything, refuses to teach his younger brother that the enemy should be hated. Instead, he takes him to light a candle, pray together, and draw on white paper doves of peace. An Iranian grandmother who, even without news of her children, persists in preparing a simple meal every Saturday, hoping that one day everyone can sit at the table again, together and in peace. And the elders in scattered villages who, even hearing the roar of cannons in the distance, continue planting small trees, hoping that their grandchildren one day can harvest fruit and time, live in the shade of rest. Faith is taught, above all, in small actions. A word of comfort to someone who lost everything. A piece of bread shared with someone who would be called a rival. A look that says, I see you, even if you're on the other side of the wall. A song softly sung before bed, not to forget the horrors, but to reaffirm that beauty insists on blooming, even on battlefields. I remember a young man named Amir, a Christian, who every day writes a psalm and places it under the door of his Muslim neighbor who lost his son in the war. He never received a reply, but one night he found a lit candle outside his door and knew, hope is silent, but it's contagious. We don't need grand deeds, brothers. We just need sincere, repeated, persistent gestures. And it's in these gestures that true spiritual heritage is passed on to future generations. Let's not let our children inherit only scars and trauma. May they receive, above all, the light of hope, the song of mercy, the certainty that it's possible to love even those who hurt us. To transmit faith is to teach resistance to despair, to insist on light when everything urges giving up. To teach mercy is to show with life that forgiving is more liberating than harboring hatred. To teach hope is every day to plant seeds of goodness, even knowing that perhaps I won't see the harvest. And to you listening to me, what simple gesture, perhaps insignificant in the world's eyes, can transform the reality around you? Share with us, inspire others, because the building of peace begins precisely there, in what no one sees, but what God never ignores. Together, in this community that knows no borders, race, or religion, we can be beacons of faith, hope, and love. Let's go forward then, for there are still more lessons to embrace, more paths to tread. And never forget, In the shadow of suffering, the smallest ray of light dispels all darkness. Beloved sons and daughters, walk with me one step further on this journey, because after the outcry, the loss, and the simple gesture, there is something even more revolutionary. Concrete, daily reconciliation, possible not just in grand international agreements, but on the humble street corners of cities wounded by war. How many of you have heard the story of Farhad, an Iranian merchant, and Yosef, his Jewish neighbor, residents of a street destroyed by bombs? Each lost family members. Hatred, planted by past tragedies, almost became law between them. But one day, when Farhad saw Yosef's shop being looted by strangers, he hesitated for a moment and decided to act. Instead of turning his back, he entered the shop, helped ward off the looters, and gently gathered the scattered goods from the floor. Yosef, disconcerted, asked, "Why are you helping me when we've been taught to distrust, fear, even hate each other?" Farhad replied, "My pain doesn't give me the right to cause you more pain. If we don't take care of each other, who will take care of us?" From this simple gesture, conversations, sharing, and over time, a cautious friendship were born. It wasn't the end of conflicts on their street, but it was the beginning of a new path, a seed of reconstruction cast upon the devastated land. Reconciliation, my brothers, often begins this way, in the humble act of choosing forgiveness, in the silent power of dialogue, in unexpected solidarity in the face of extreme need. It's not about forgetting the pain, nor erasing the memory of those who are gone. Rather, it's about transforming suffering into active compassion, allowing love, even wounded, to be greater than the past. Father Pierre, a French priest who worked many years in Lebanon, used to say a phrase that deeply moves me. Peace is not a decree, but a seed that is planted every day. And this seed grows where there is enough humility to ask for forgiveness, to listen, to start over. How many families divided by invisible walls rediscovered the beauty of solidarity by sharing bread and water? In times of emergency, when supplies are scarce and hearts are exhausted, the simple act of sharing food becomes a revolution. There are reports of women who, even after burying their children, prepared meals for soldiers on both sides, saying, "Today we are all hungry humans, and hunger doesn't distinguish flags." What strength, what holiness exists in this humility. And you, son or daughter, may never be called to rebuild houses amidst bombs, but you can rebuild relationships destroyed by pride or resentment. You can be the first to apologize, to rebuild bridges, to invite to the table someone who was once called an adversary. Peace, I repeat, is a daily and courageous attitude. It's born in everyday life, flourishes in the soil of solidarity, matures in forgiveness, and everyone, without exception, was created for this work of reconstruction. Now, I ask you to reclaim with me the power of silence, a silence that isn't omission, but pure space for God to speak where words are no longer enough. In times of war, the noise of bombs tries to drown out any hope. The cries of victims, the grinding of rubble, the urgency of danger, all of this seems to want to eclipse God's gentle voice. But He, our Father, speaks in silence. In empty churches and mosques where only the echo of footsteps of those seeking refuge remains, prayer rises like an invisible perfume. How many times have mothers, priests, rabbis, imams, and children gathered in shelters, not to plan revenge, but to cry out together, "Lord, have mercy on us." It is in that instant that prayer reveals itself as strength, not weakness. The world judges prayer useless, but faith teaches that when everything collapses, a bent knee and a sincere heart change destinies, change stories. There are thousands of accounts of families who, in the darkest night, felt an inexplicable peace as if an invisible hand protected them. It's not magic, nor superstition. It's the Spirit who comforts and strengthens. And there is also the sacred silence, the one in which weeping transforms into surrender. "Lord, I don't understand, I can't bear it, but I trust." The silence that, in chaos, refuses to be overcome by despair. The silence that, instead of being passivity, is spiritual resistance. There is no political speech, no military decree capable of producing what a humble soul produces when it prays. Often, children set the example. It's said of a boy who every day, even hearing distant gunshots, sits before the simple altar his mother improvised and whispers, "Today I want peace, Lord, not just for me, but for everyone." The greatest act of resistance, children, is to refuse to hate, to refuse to respond to evil with more evil. to pray, to seek the center, to keep the flame of faith alive. That is true struggle. The silence where God speaks is also the ground where new peace germinates. Wherever you are, allow yourself this constructive silence. Let God act. And remember, every sincere prayer, every offered silence, every small gesture of faith is a seed sown in the land of hope. In times of war, insisting on prayer and trust in God is the highest form of resistance. And now, my beloved, as we come to the end of this journey of reflection, I want to make the most urgent and profound appeal of this video to you. Because true peace doesn't begin at diplomatic tables, nor does it end on newspaper pages. Peace begins in the heart of every person willing to interrupt the cycle of hatred and plant love where there is only fear. You, who have accompanied me this far, are a living part of this current of hope. Don't wait for others to start. The call is personal and non-transferable. I say to all, be the spark. Be today the beginning of a forgotten reconciliation, of a difficult conversation, of a kind gesture that disarms someone's heart. The world will only be different when each person chooses not to transmit violence, neither with words, nor with gestures, nor in silence. Don't perpetuate the inheritance of evil. Be a transmitter of good, of compassion, of forgiveness. Every morning, renew this commitment. Today, I will not be a channel of hatred. Today, I will be a bridge. Today, I choose peace. I humbly ask that you share this video, leave a like, and write in the comments. What can you do today, concretely, to be a bearer of peace? What small reconciliation can happen through you? Your attitude and your story are precious and can inspire many others to do the same. True peace is not a utopia. It is a difficult, daily, courageous choice. It is to fight every day, not to be dominated by fear, by resentment, by the desire for revenge. One heart at a time, one story at a time, the world transforms. I conclude with a papal and pastoral blessing. May the God of all mercy, compassion, and comfort bless your families. May He strip your heart of all hatred and grant you the joy of being, already today, a living sign of peace where you live. May Mary, Mother of Hope, and all the saints intercede for us, and may we not be ashamed to be light where there is only darkness. The cycle of evil can be broken. Peace can start with you. Be light, be reconciliation, be a miracle. Amen.